I lead a finance team in IT and chair the Nedbank Gender Equity Forum. It is in this second role that I have the pleasure of welcoming you today, both physically to the Nedbank office and virtually as we lead up to the 5th annual Voices of Change event in August 2022. I am honored and pleased to be part of this hybrid event, which really has become a reflection of how we evolve our ways of work to adapt to an ever-changing environment. While we are learning to live with the COVID-19 virus, our protocols at Nedbank remain to ensure that we create a safe place to work and to bank. And so, to all our guests, please continue to keep your masks on while in the auditorium and follow the social distancing practices. On behalf of Voices of Change founding partners, Accenture, Business Engage, and Nedbank, we invite you to join us to take a bold new leap to keeping alive the conversations of how we drive a more gender equal society. We also acknowledge our partners who have kept the conversation going: AECI, Astron Energy, Anglo Gold Ashanti, EOH, Life Healthcare, and Refinitiv. Voices of Change, or the VOC movement, started in 2017 at the One Young World Summit, when Accenture and Thomson Reuters saw an opportunity to leverage their networks and expertise to create lasting and impactful change. From it, the theme, She, He, We is Power, was created. There is a strong message in that phrase, and that is to harness the power of diversity, collective effort is needed. It's clear that for collective power, both men and women are required to build a powerfully economically inclusive future. Voices of Change strengthens the purpose of gender equity and allows partners to share their experiences, successes, and measures that can empower women. As advocates of this movement, the partners I mentioned earlier use this platform to create awareness, to support each other, and to get access to thought leadership around gender equity and women's empowerment. This month, Nedbank is the host of the coffee session and is certainly proud to be part of the VOC movement. Over the last few years, the VOC movement has gained momentum in collaborating on important issues that affect women. Today, we are proud to have Kenzi share her voice and contribute to the conversation about gender equity. We have this saying internally: the difference starts with one person, and that one person is you. Therefore, it is so apt that Kenzi will be talking to us about authentic leadership. I am super excited to have here and to share Kenzi with you all today. I say share because I've had the privilege of regularly engaging with Kenzi, as she's the patron and an ardent supporter of the Nedbank Gender Equity Forum. Her passion, her enthusiasm, willingness to engage and support always and authentically is visible. I feel blessed and hugely value working with such an inspirational leader. Before I hand over to Kenzi, let me take a moment to read her bio, which will also be up on screen. Kenzani Nobanda, or Kenzi, as we affectionately call her, is the Group Executive for Marketing and Corporate Affairs at the Nedbank Group. As both the executive in charge of marketing and a member of the Nedbank Group Executive Leadership, she ensures the cohesive and consistent alignment between the marketing messaging, brand positioning, and business objectives across the group, while providing strategic input to various Nedbank structures, committees, and partnerships. Kenzi joined Nedbank in 2017 as the executive head of group marketing, before being promoted to her current role and the Nedbank Group Exco in May 2018. Her more than 20-year marketing career has afforded her invaluable experience in several leading South African and multinational organizations. After starting out as an assistant brand manager at Unilever, she rose through the ranks to eventually head up the skin category for Unilever Africa, Middle East, and Turkey. This was followed by various leadership roles and executive roles in Diageo, South African breweries, and Vodacom before joining Nedbank. She's passionate about brands and the potential they have to deliver tangible value to consumers and more broadly to society by being purposes-led and values-driven. Kenzi has a BCom from the University of Witwatersrand and an MBA from Gibbs. She is a member of the Effie Awards South Africa, a regular member of the judging panel for the Luries and Bookmakers Award, and a sought-after public speaker. While Kenzi shares her views on authentic leadership, as well as nuggets from her own leadership journey, I encourage you to submit questions you may have, that we may pose these questions to Kenzi during our Q&A session a bit later. For our online audience, please share your questions on our Teams chat panel, and to our audience in the auditorium, may you send your questions to our dedicated WhatsApp line on 081 018 9339. It's now time to move over to our dynamic leader, Kenzi. Kenzi, over to you.
Thank you for that incredible welcome. Cool. So I'm going to talk today about authentic leadership, and I'll tell you why I actually chose this topic just as an overall. A little bit of feedback. Okay, cool. So the reason I chose this topic is, and I think it's quite appropriate for women, is there's a narrative, right, that says for us to be leaders as women, there's a particular way that we need to show up. There's a particular way that we need to be. And dare I say, maybe we need to be more like men in a sense, right? So that's the narrative that's out there. This is how we're going to be successful. And actually, I've found that that's not the case, which is why I wanted to talk about authentic leadership today, because I think it's fundamentally important that as women, we understand that we don't have to change who we are. We don't have to be someone else in order to be able to lead in organizations and make a successful and impactful career. So I'm going to start with the dictionary definition, right, of authentic. So if you look at what the dictionary says, it says it's of undisputed origin, not a copy, genuine. And I like that genuine part. And if you look at the synonyms, right, of what genuine means original, real, and true. Now, for me, authentic goes just more than just like something that I talk about. It's actually one of my core values. And the reason that it's one of my core values is it's because I know that if I'm honest with myself and with others, I am able to take responsibility for my mistakes, and I'm able to make sure that my values, my ideals, as well as my actions are aligned. And why is that important to me? Because I don't know about you guys, but living an authentically life is actually much more rewarding than hiding your true self. Don't you think it's heavy hiding your true self? Like just getting through life hiding your true self is actually, I feel like it chips away at your soul and at your heart. For me, when you live authentically, you don't have to worry about what you said or didn't say. You don't have to worry about how you acted. You don't have to worry about whether or not you said the right thing. Living authentically means you actually trust yourself implicitly and your motivations, and other people will see that. So I guess maybe let's get to, what does that mean exactly, right? And this is from Bill George's practical approach to authentic leadership. And he really has 5 dimensions where he talks about what are the different qualities of authentic leaders that you must have or that you can develop? And those qualities and characteristics have 5 dimensions to them. So I'll speak to what those dimensions are, and then I'll speak to each of them individually. So first, one of the characteristics is you must have purpose and passion, your values and behavior, relationships and connectedness. You must have self-discipline and consistency, and I'll talk a little bit about that because, I struggle with it a little bit. And you must have heart and compassion. So what I'll do now is I'm going to chat through each of them, but I'm going to pepper it with some of my personal experience. So I'm quite an open person, which is part of the authenticity. So, don't mind me, traveling along with some of my own life stories, but I do think they will give you a sense of, what I mean and what I'm talking about. So the first dimension of an authentic leader, right, is purpose and passion. And what this means is that you must lead with purpose and not just lead with goals. That doesn't mean, right, that goals aren't important, because I think goals are a good parameter of progress. But goals alone won't guarantee you success. And it doesn't necessarily show that you care about what you're doing. And I'll open on this in terms of, my own career. When I was at Vodacom, so one of the organizations I was at, I struggled to connect to the culture of the organization. I did quite well, actually, to be honest, in the business itself. But really the work that I did, I wasn't connected to it in a way that I knew I would be able to speak about that work for years to come. And because of that, I was probably a little bit detached from the organization and from the business. And it's funny, that detachment then came across as, so my boss, when they discuss us, right, like in terms of performance and stuff, my boss came back and gave me feedback and said, they say you're arrogant. Now, anyone who knows me knows that I would, arrogance is I'm very self-aware, right? And I know that I'm not perfect, but certainly arrogance, I'd never been described, as that. But I think because I was in this organization where I wasn't connected to the work that I was doing, to the organization itself, and the detachment then came across as arrogance. Interestingly enough, the same organization, Vodacom, put me on a program called Inspire. So what Inspire was they took 40 leaders that sat just below their executive committee across Vodafone globally. And you went on a program where it was really around developing you from a leadership perspective. And it was fantastic because it gave you access to the group global Vodafone Exco. We got to go to 3 countries across the world and really interact and really build yourself. But part of that journey, we had an executive coaching who really helped you understand your purpose and if you were living your purpose from a career perspective. And one of the things that happened in that Inspire program for me is understanding that I wasn't connecting to my job, understanding that I wasn't connecting to Vodacom. The program that they took me to develop me for leadership at Vodacom is the program that made me leave Vodacom because actually I was lucky enough that I was being asked questions that I needed to really question myself and articulate what I wanted for myself and what I wanted for my career. And it became incredibly clear that Vodacom was not what was going to do that for me. So when I got the call from Nedbank, and I remember, so I decided I'm not going to stay at Vodacom, but I wasn't going to, I've left a job before with no job, but this time I was like, I'm not at that place yet. So I was just waiting for the right, so when Nedbank called me, I went and looked at their advertising and they just repositioned. So this is 2017. And I saw the Nedbank TV ad, the money one, the first repositioning one. And I got goosebumps because I realized that I could absolutely connect to this brand and what this brand was doing. And more than that, I could build on what this brand was doing and it would be connected to a deeper level for me. And because of that, I could authentically bring my passion and my personality to it because I was really connected to it. And I've seen it, right? Because it also means that I can fight for my work, right? In terms of when I want to do stuff and I'm getting pushed back, I don't just give up. I can fight for it because I absolutely believe in it. I believe in the brand purpose of Nedbank. So for me, that first dimension of purpose and passion is incredibly important because it means you as a leader, you actually hold yourself accountable at another level simply because your connectedness to what you're doing is actually much more than a transactional day-to-day sort of job. And you can be successful. I did well at Vodacom. That's why I got on Inspire. But it just doesn't make your heart sing in the way that really I think, your job should. The second dimension is around values and behavior. And it's basically around how do you lead with values and principles versus leading with a selfish agenda. Because being authentic is fundamental to who I am, it's important that as people experience me, especially as a leader, that they believe that I fundamentally act with principles. And there's many ways to do this, but I'll speak about an experience that I actually think also highlights that and speaks to Nedbank's, philosophy of human-centered leadership. So I'm not going to talk about which company it was, right? But I had someone who was reporting to me who I really struggled with. And so the whole idea of leading with values and principles, right, and leading with a selfish agenda. So the first thing I had to do, so the problems with us, and it's funny, I had a conversation with this person, it was another woman, and I said to her, I don't think you want to report to me, Wenane. And she said, no, I do, And I said, okay. So I thought, you know what, let me selfishly put aside what I'm seeing in front of me, and let me engage with this person in a way that has got values and principles, and make sure that I don't, if I look back to how I, manage this relationship, I will never be embarrassed, right, by what I did, by what I said, and all of that. Over time, I realized, though, that I was getting undermined, and in fact, wasn't then getting the best out of the area that this person was managing. But what I did is I decided to have this conversation around you don't want to manage with me because I am like that. I am direct. I am honest because I feel like it helps not only me, it helps you as well. So I sat down with her and I said, it's not working, is it? Right, between us? It's just not working, is it? And she said, yeah, it's not. And I said, so don't you think we must, And she said, Kenz, I actually think you're right. And because during my interactions with her and in all the tough, things that we had with each other, we were able to get to a point where we honestly spoke about it. And it wasn't driven by ego. It was driven by, I felt like I held my principles true. I feel like potentially if I had to bump into her somewhere, I don't think she's going to stab me, right? I feel like it's going to be But it's important, right, as an authentic leader, because you can't call yourself an authentic leader if you don't have honest conversations with people. You cannot call yourself that. So for me, whilst it is difficult, I still believe do not hurt people, do not be cruel, but you must have some level of just holding your principles dear to how you interact. So the third dimension around relationships and connectedness, and it speaks to leading with heart versus leading with ego. This is an interesting one for me. Everyone knows I wear my heart on my sleeve, so that's pretty easy for me, but it's also not as easy. So I was having a conversation yesterday with an entrepreneur, a guy entrepreneur. He's fascinating. I want to say his name, and I'd love to, because if you follow him, I think there's just so much you can learn from him. He's come out publicly and spoken about his struggle with mental illness, depression, and all of that. He owned an agency. He lost it. He basically had no money. His wife left him at that time, took the kids, went and stayed somewhere else, and he was alone. And he went into severe mental depression. And he then, fortunately, his dad actually stepped up for him, which is amazing. Like a guy, men, sometimes you don't normally think, but his dad stepped up for him and he got through it. He's running another business, but he's also clear, he's running another business, but with other people, not alone. So he's not like the soul, He got back with his wife. He's in a great space. He then asked himself, I can't have gone through all of this without having some lessons that I must share with people. So he shares his journey on mental depression incredibly openly on social media everywhere. So he mentors a lot of entrepreneurs. And he said he was chatting to an entrepreneur who said, my business is not doing well, but I'm not going to let it go. It's my baby. And he said to this person, a baby is a living human being. Your business is not your baby. Your job is not your baby. So this whole idea that you must stick with something because for what, your ego, is actually something that we must let go. The minute something doesn't serve you well, you need to go, guys. But you know why we stay? And I know there's financial implications. I know that, right? But I would suggest that we stay because of our egos. I can't be a failed entrepreneur. I can't resign from my job because what will people say? Now, as I've said, I've had some tough times, both in my personal life as well as my career. And I share these very openly, even on social media, if you follow me. Do I care what people think of me? I do. But more than anything, I care that I can genuinely share how I'm feeling, because that builds connectedness with those around me. I believe that a lot of the connections that I have at Nedbank even now is because people see the real me. And because of that, we're able to do much better work. So the fourth dimension I'm going to talk about is heart and compassion, right? And this is really about being a leader who is sensitive to other people's needs and is willing to help. It helps you as a leader to drive long-term relationships and connectedness instead of transactional relationships. Now, I'm not saying you should be friends with people you work with, right? But there really should be a level of respect that you build that allows you and the people that you work with to succeed together. Interestingly enough, I think as women, this is actually, I think I said this on one of our CEO stand-up, and I said, actually, as women, we have empathy in us naturally. And what was probably before COVID considered as a weakness, empathy, I think is a superpower, actually. And COVID proved it. If you look at the female leaders who did well globally, so the leaders who did well globally, it was female leaders actually in terms of managing COVID, managing their countries through COVID. If you look at even in business, how as female leaders, it was easier to empathize with what people were going through, just because that's what, who we are as women. Now, why would anyone say that's a weakness? Actually, empathy is a superpower. I got challenged in a session this week. It's called the Institute for Real Growth, and it talks about humanized growth. It talks about businesses growing, not just for shareholders' sake. It says there are 4 key stakeholders when it comes to businesses growing. It is your shareholders, it is your employees, it is your clients, and it is society. And it says if your growth doesn't cover all those 4 areas, then you don't have humanized growth. In one of the modules, it was talking about commerce. So when you sell to your clients, do you have empathy in your commerce? And I said, I got challenged. I was trying to think of our app, and I was like, I feel like we've built purpose in it, but I really got challenged. Like, do we have empathy in how we treat our clients? How many of you in this room would say your organization treats its clients with empathy? And I can tell you that if you as a person, as a leader, if you don't come across as someone who has compassion, who has heart, your business won't. And the businesses that don't will be worse in the long term. This study, if you've got time, Institute for Real Growth, I think has like anyone across whatever, it's generally like built from a marketing perspective, but the whole idea of human connected growth, I think, is so powerful because it is talking about how in the future, in the current world that we live in, businesses that think beyond the selfish interests of shareholders are going to be successful businesses. And I think that's quite powerful. And I think as women, we understand it actually far better than any other business leaders. So the final dimension is self-discipline and consistency. And this is my hardest one. So there's 2 dimensions to it. There's the, being goal-focused, even with setbacks. And then there's being cool, calm, and collected. So I'm going to speak about the first one. The first one is really easy for me. I'm incredibly goal-focused. I'm achievement-driven. It's easy to have conversations with my team about, but we said, where are we on it's easy. That's easy. The second one is incredibly difficult for me, cool, calm, and collected. I think some people who are in my team are sitting in this room and they'll tell you, no. But I'll tell you maybe a little interesting story, and I think it goes back to self-awareness. At 25, I got made the category director for tea for Unilever South Africa. Incredibly young, had a team of people who generally older than me. One of them even, what was like very uncomfortable was when I started at Unilever, she was my buddy, the person who, takes you around, and now I'm her boss and stuff. And one day I was reporting to the marketing vice president, Ham Husens, and he gave me feedback one day. And he said to me, you know, Kenzi, your energy is such that when you are in a good mood, it fires up a room. The mood is great in a room. But when you are in a bad mood, everything drops. The energy in the room is negative. And he said, so you need to learn how to manage your energy in a positive manner. And initially I was 25, I said, yes, no. I was like, really? Like, you know? But because I'd been promoted at such a young age, they'd given me an executive coach to like help me. And I told her about it. And she said, okay, just like relax. I just want you to do something for me. I want you to start just, you know, gauging as you walk into a room or a meeting or whatever, gauge what happens in the room, go back to your feelings and your emotions at that time and see if what Harm is saying, you know, is true. And it was a massive aha moment for me because it was absolutely true. So I had to learn to actually manage myself and manage my emotions. Now that doesn't mean I'm not being authentic, but I have to understand that how I come across impacts other people. And if I want to have authentic engagement with people who can trust me, who believe that we're winning together, then I have to like really be able to manage myself. Doesn't mean I'm always great at it. And in fact, last year, we did 2 surveys. So we did, as a group exco, we did almost like a leadership survey. And then in my cluster exco, in terms of the cluster that I lead, we did a diversity, equity, and inclusion survey. And I started realizing that I'm leaking, and I'm calling it that. I'm leaking more than I normally do, because I'm not always like, as I'm managing myself, I have to always remind myself, Kenzi, manage your energy, make sure that, you know, you're connecting positively. But I realized that actually I was doing it more in terms of the negative way than the normal. But that was good that I got this feedback, right? Because I then asked myself what was happening, what was going on in my life that was making me do that. And I had a fantastic 2021 professionally. I was like marketer of the year, you know, I won industry leader of the year, fantastic professionally, but personally I had an incredibly difficult year. And I realized that that's what was happening, is because I actually wasn't coping, I was leaking. And that self-awareness, when I talk to, you know, what you must do to be an authentic leader, self-awareness is like the biggest, you know, thing for me. It's like incredibly important. So I still don't think I'm where I want to be in terms of the self-discipline and consistency in terms of how people experience me. But I certainly know that at least I'm aware of where I'm at. And I think that's important. So I guess the next obvious question is, how do you become a more authentic leader? And for me, the first thing is self-awareness, is increase your self-awareness. A key behavior of behaving authentically is to understand what you care about most. And it sounds simple, right? But in today's complex world, determining what's most important can be difficult. But you need to like really learn surefire ways to increase your self-awareness. But the other important way of being self-aware is actually getting feedback. And I know feedback is like really tough for people, but I think it's important. Once you're very clear about what your values, likes, and dislikes are, which I should be here, yeah, you can be better aligned in terms of your behaviors as well as with your beliefs. But let me tell you something, right? In being self-aware and then going and being clear about what your values, likes, and dislikes are, what you must never do is give up on things that are actually important to you. Now, and I'll tell you, I know my boss, Mfundo, I think he's dialed in actually listening to this. So even when I get feedback and maybe I get told, let me just give an example. Oh, she's too casual. And that comes as like a negative. She must develop, she's too casual. I say to my boss, I'm not changing that, because actually that's important to me. For me to be authentic and to show up, you know, in a way that is me all the time, that I'm not changing. So even as people give you feedback, you must be clear what it is you are willing to change and what it's not. And you must be, okay, so I'm casual, so that, you know, it is what it is, you know. So I don't know, like another one, and Mfundo and I were actually laughing, and I said to him, no, boss, I'm not changing that one, Shem. Like, it's just, it is what it is, you know. If I have to bring my real true self, then, you know, some of the things I just can't change. The third one is then really taking action. And you don't have to make sweeping changes. And by the way, taking action doesn't also mean that you won't, I'm going to call it backslide, I guess, right? Like, but don't be too hard on yourself. At least if you have the self-awareness, you are able to understand that this is the behavior that I must change. A little bit. I read a lot, so generally, if I've identified something that is an interesting thing or is an issue or whatever, I generally tend to read, like take in a lot of like grams of information about it, and then like work through what I can to be able to use that to make a change in my life. And then finally, get support, and the support can be in many ways, right? It can be support. So I said to my team, when I realized that I'm leaking, the guys who report to me, I actually said to them, hold me accountable. I said to them, here's the feedback that I got from these surveys that happened, and you guys were part of that feedback. And I told them, here's what I'm going through, guys. I'm in a really tough space personally. So, I know that I'm not necessarily engaging you guys in the best and most compassionate way all the time. And I need you to help me. And in helping me, I will then at least be more awareness. So what's that support that you require? It's not, it doesn't always have to be the way I did it. I trust my team. So I knew that I could be able to say to them, Mark, Ntabi, if you feel like you're not experiencing me in a way that I've said that, I've put it out there, please give me the feedback. So get the support. So for me, I think, and this slide speaks to it, if you're able to do this and lead with more heart, you're actually able to be much more inclusive. You are able to challenge the status quo. And now I do authentically, like sometimes uncomfortably, and you can lead with sympathy. Maybe my final word before I get to the final slide is what I know for sure is that whenever I have been authentic, I have done my best work. And whenever an organization has tried to change me or make me who I am, not, I have not done my best work. So it is in your greatest interests as women, as leaders, to actually be authentically you, because you're going to do your best work and you're going to be the best you. And you're not going to have this feeling of being chipped away at, which is not a best place to be at. So I'll end with a final quote from Michael Hollard, which says, authentic leadership is revealed in the alignment of what you think, what you say, and what you do. And with that, I'll hand over back to Desh for Q&A. Thank you.
I wish we could actually give you that standing ovation, moon boot and all. But anyways, Kenzi, wow, that's just incredible. I just want to say to everybody, we have 1,742 people that are online. And before I go into the questions piece, just some comments that have come through that I would love to read. Our audience are really enjoying the conversation with you, Kenzi. There are many of our viewers telling us that they feel empowered by your story and inspired. So thank you for sharing. Some comments from Edith, who has joined online, says, powerful topic on authentic leadership. We have another note from Lunga, who tells us to remain authentic and true to oneself. So my first question, and it comes from Nandipa, true leaders should be able to have those uncomfortable conversations. With uncomfortableness, there is room for growth. Kenzi, can you share your tip on how to have those uncomfortable conversations?
Sure. Okay. So I think it maybe before I get to maybe a tip, I'll tell you why it was important that I had this conversation as well. When I was at SAB, I had someone in my team who wasn't delivering at the level that I would have liked them to. And I was so scared to have the direct and uncomfortable conversation with her. And when I reflect back now, I actually think I did a detriment to not just me, but to her as well. I feel like if I'd been open and honest at that time, I think she would be in a much better space, to be honest, career-wise. And if I look now where she's at, I don't feel like I really helped because I was so scared to have an uncomfortable conversation. And I did a detriment to myself because actually at that time on Hansa, because I was working on Hansa, as a brand, we were not doing well. So in the end, actually, the area that she was looking after was a big part of whether or not we were going to be successful. So in the end, we actually failed because I just wasn't honest. So I guess the lesson I then took was that it doesn't help not being honest. It doesn't help either individual. So I guess the tip for me would be, and it's something that someone said to me many years ago, and I hope I quote it correctly, you must be honest and fair, not, so there's something around honest and fair, but not cruel. And that's important because I think sometimes when people say you must have honest conversations or you must be direct, and I'm quite a direct person, there's a sense that you can hurt the other person or you can be cruel to the other person. I think principally you don't want to do that. You're just wanting to have an open and honest conversation so hold that fairness that you don't want to hurt the other person or be cruel. I mean, they might be hurt because it's not a nice conversation, but you certainly don't want to be cruel to the other person. That's the only tip I can give really is, it's going to be the best outcome for both of you in the end. And as long as you go into it with the principle that you're not going to be cruel to the other person, and you're helping both of you actually, and just be honest and fair in the conversation that you have, as uncomfortable as it is. And it's still not comfortable for me, by the way, but I just hold that as a principle.
Quite a few people just land that seed around now how to do this uncomfortable thing. The next question for you, Kenzi. What advice can you give us if being direct is perceived as being aggressive or too forward?
Oh. Because that's a lot of ways I get described, right? So I'm trying to, and again, maybe it's around getting people to understand like who you are. Because I think it's, if you are generally like a quiet person and then all of a sudden you're just like aggressive, it's like a bit weird. Like, but it doesn't mean that if you're a quiet person that you won't be able to have direct conversations, but you must do it in a way that is authentic to you. It mustn't like, because for me, you might say it's aggressive, but when you see me in my life, I'm like this, there's a lot. So you then understand that actually it's not that she's being aggressive in this conversation. It's just how she is and stuff. So it's authentic to her. I mean, if you see me watching Liverpool play, guys, it is like, but I think as long as you do it in a way that is authentically you, like don't, for me, if people are saying you're being aggressive just because you're being honest and direct, that's not fair. And you must actually say that to them. As long as you're doing it in a way that is like, people mustn't look at it and go, dash, I never would have expected it. But there must be like honesty in it. So do it in a way that makes sense to you and you feel comfortable with. Like, but I would challenge back if someone said to me, I think you're being aggressive. I'd say, but this is generally how I communicate, whether positively or negatively, actually, like this is how I communicate.
Give yourself the permission to also stand up when actually it feels like you're being called out unfairly. Yeah. Okay, so another question for you. Have you ever experienced imposter syndrome? Yeah. If so, how have you managed that and to remain authentic?
I have. And I think, so let me maybe go back to about 11 years ago. I took a break from working for 6 months. And the reason I did it was from a personal perspective, I'd lost my brother. And from a work perspective, I wasn't in a good place. That's when I was category director for skin for Africa, Middle East and Turkey, Unilever. I had a boss who, in retrospect, when I think back, Desh, I understood his motivations was to run Unilever globally. How his ambitions like basically landed with us was someone who was completely not empathetic, who he didn't care who he killed on his way to running Unilever globally, right? Like, and I took a knock from a confidence perspective because it doesn't matter what my team and I did. I mean, we launched ponds in the Gulf And in 1 year, we were market leaders in the premium skin business. It didn't matter what we did. It was never good enough for him. So I would watch my own advertising on TV, on Lux, and I would fast forward it. Like I just didn't connect with my job. So my self-confidence like really took a knock. And I would literally go into meetings because my job was like, for the region. I'd walk into a meeting with the Saudi guys who already, I'm a black woman, are just looking at me thinking, and then and I would walk in and I just would feel like I'm a fraud, like I don't deserve to be here. They will catch me out, at some stage and stuff. And the only way for me to actually get through it was one, I actually reflected on my career and my successes, and I reminded myself that you're the girl who was a category director at 25, not for fun. You know what I mean? You're that girl. You know what I mean? I reminded myself about my own successes and what I'd done. 2, I then decided and I checked with myself, who was the person who was going to give me validation on whether or not I was doing well? Was it going to be this guy who was treating me like this, or was it going to be me? Who was going to give myself validation? And I said, I'm not taking validation from him, because if I take validation from him, all that will happen is I will just continue to doubt myself. And how do I then articulate if I'm doing well or not? It's what we've signed on to at the beginning of the year. And if I'm doing well on that and the markets that I go into are very happy, why is this the guy, the one human being? That's the human being who must tell me that, nah, I'm not doing a good job. So I removed the need for validation from him. In the end, I decided to leave the job because I didn't want to be in that space. Because I felt like I was fighting so hard to self-validate. And you don't want to be in an environment where you're self-validating, but there's no validation this side. It's just hard, you know what I mean? So I did leave in the end, and I took a 6-month break from working. And I told myself I would never allow myself to be in a situation like that, where I needed validation so much, and it just wasn't forthcoming and stuff, So I've certainly had that imposter syndrome, but I will just say 2 things, honestly. Remind yourself of who you are, what you've done. You've done it. You've done it, And then 2, forget validation externally. Hold yourself in terms of validation. Of course, like I say, if you're in an environment that is constantly hammering against you, remove yourself from that environment, because if it's only about self-validation, it's too difficult. And then maybe the last thing, I must say, so I take energy from people, right? So how people react or whatever. So if I'm presenting at an exco meeting or whatever, and the room is just sitting like this, ooh, this is and doesn't, I get derailed and stuff, because I'm just oh my God, I'm doing well, And one of the things, Kees Kreithoff, who was the MD of Unilever, and I spoke to him many years, I would watch him make speeches or talk to the company. And I would ask him, Kees, it feels so natural to you, it's you're just speaking from the cuff. And he said to me, Kenzi, I practiced this 10 times yesterday, 10 times, for it to come across I'm just speaking from the cuff and naturally. So part of also just managing imposter syndrome is make sure that you're always prepared. For me, and I'm not a prepared person, generally, I feel I can always be, off the cuff and stuff, but I've realized over time that if I have to remove, and make sure that I've got confidence in what I'm saying, then I must prepare.
Thank you. And just to acknowledge that question around imposter syndrome came from Carissa. We have a question for you from the auditorium, from Shazia. And her question is, how do you patch up where you are leaking in the situations where you are overwhelmed by multiple challenges and still expected to deliver?
Shaz, I can see you there. I mean, that's why I said, I feel like I'm still going through it. But I think because I've shared with my team, I feel like there's a lot more empathy from them and understanding, I think, which is great. Certainly, and I'll be open. So, the reason I'm in a really tough space personally is I lost my sister in December, and it was just incredibly devastating. So I also acknowledge that I have to look after myself. So I've been taking anxiety medication. I've gone back to running, but unfortunately, so just gone back to looking after myself to make sure that I'm patching, I've gone back to doing the things that I love. I love reading. And I found that, over time, with being busy, I just wouldn't make space for it. So I've just gone back to things that I love to really just try make my heart sing again. Just look after myself. My husband is incredible. I think he's really just helped me. I think for me it's been that. It's been sharing with my team so that there's empathy and I don't always feel under pressure, and they understand. And then just self-care and just to make sure, because I think that's where it's come from, is I just haven't looked after myself in a way that I've needed to, given just what a tough personal, time I've had.
This one is a question that maybe many people will get some value from, and it is, what advice do you have for a new leader?
Let me think. Okay, so look, I think there's many, there's a myriad of things I can say and stuff, but maybe what helped me is definitely getting coaching. I certainly think it helped me having someone outside of Unilever who didn't, they knew the business, but they didn't work there, who could help me navigate, and I could ask them questions. They could help me prep for stuff. And so even the feedback that I told you that I got from Harm, I would never have been able to ask someone at Unilever that, this is what Harm said. What do you think? Because I would have felt judged, but having that coach actually who was external to Unilever, I think helped me. I mean, there's many things I can say, prep to, but I actually just think, having a coach is, for me, was the difference between failure and succeeding in my first leadership role. And then maybe, I guess, in my first leadership role, I didn't really have an opportunity to craft the team that I had around me. But I would say in any leadership role, the team that you have around you is so fundamental to how well or not you're going to do. I can't tell you. And the minute you believe that someone in that team is not a right fit for what you're trying to do, you must have the courage to have those uncomfortable conversations with them. Because like I said, what the mistake I made on Hansa is I kept someone who I saw from month one wasn't going to work, and I kept them for 3 years, and it was detrimental, actually. So as a leader, I would say really choose carefully the people that you have around you and the team that you build around you, because it's going to be the difference between success and failure.
Something that you said towards the end, I don't know if you can say it again or just read it again, but it was around you do your best work when you are authentically.
Yeah, I've seen it in my career. And like I said, what I know for sure, I'm using Oprah's words, right? What I know for sure is that when I am at my most authentic, I do my best work. And I can tell you, I am incredibly lucky. I'm going to talk about my bank here. I am incredibly lucky that I work at Nedbank, because Nedbank has allowed me to be my authentic self. And I look at the work that we've done from a brand and marketing perspective, from a CSI perspective, and I am proud of it. I'm proud of it because it connects so deeply with me and my purpose and my passion. I'm proud of it because I've done it in a way that I've not lost an inch of who I am. And it's landed incredibly well in market. It's made us a famous marketing team, and that is because I am lucky enough to work in an organization that has allowed me to be authentically me.
Jenny says, Kenzi, thank you for being vulnerable and for demonstrating your authentic leadership. I have one more question for you from the auditorium. How do you ensure that you remain kind to yourself, particularly when personal pressures start compromising your standards?
Yeah, so this is the bit around, I'm lucky that I'm incredibly self-aware. So I do, when something's happening, if I've got tension or stress or whatever, I do this thing where I sit down, I meditate, and then I'm meditating just so that I can understand what is happening, what is driving this tension, and I hold tension here. And once I understand, because I always find, even if I don't know how I'm going to solve it, I always feel like once I understand what's driving the tension, I already feel better, like by a million miles and stuff. If I don't understand what's driving my tension, I spiral and stuff, you know? So for me, really like it's just about being clear on what's driving how I'm feeling, being much more self-aware. And it doesn't happen, guys. You can't just be self-aware, you must work at it. And I think that's the thing. It's not easy. Like when I say like, I sit and meditate, and in meditation, I start to understand what's going on in my head, what's driving it, why am I feeling that way, to ensure that I don't spiral and that I consistently am kind and kinder to myself and kinder to other people, because we don't know what people are going through. I mean, in the last 2 years, there's been so much loss in our country, in families, and yet it's fascinating for me, like how we are as human beings. When I saw Ricky, I'm gonna go a little bit way. When I saw Rick killed himself, right? And everyone's like, be kind, be kind. And I'm like, do you actually live that every day to other people? Do you? Because literally the very next day on those very social media streets, there's so much unkindness. For what? I just think it's so unnecessary. So for me, like being kind is not only to myself, but it's to others as well, because we've got no idea what people are going through. And even if they're not going through anything, it takes nothing from you to be kinder, to be honest.
So I have some more comments from our viewers. Sue Harvard says, it's rare to witness a remarkable, authentic leader. Love it. Resonates with our values. Mankele really enjoyed listening to you, Kenzi, and thank you for sharing your story. It was moving. Fatima Satar speaks all of us joining. This was totally awesome. We are absolutely inspired. I want to ask you one last closing question before I hand over to Ntombi to close out. So thanks for sharing these incredibly insightful leadership traits about you. How do you mindfully balance different aspects of your life? Being a powerfully demanding career, a wife, a family member, friend, mentor, coach, and just being humanely you?
I think it's a fantastic question. So I believe in what what people call work-life integration. I don't believe in work-life balance, because I always feel like balance is like this, things. For me, all of this is part of me and who I am and how I live and stuff. And that's why, by the way, the organization you work for is so important, because it's so much a part of like your life. And I'll tell you what I mean by that, right? So once I was on holiday with friends of mine, and we were taking a train. So I love wine and champagne. So we're taking a train from Champagne to Bordeaux. I did a 40 before 40 list. And on my 40 before 40 list, I was like, drink champagne in Champagne, drink Bordeaux in Bordeaux. Like, so I was with my friends, and we're taking a train from Champagne to Bordeaux. And I started working on the train. And they were like, you're on leave. Like, why are you working? And I said, because to me, it doesn't take anything away from me. I'm on a train anyway. We're hanging out and chatting, and we're having wine on the train. I'm doing my work, which I love. At the same time, on a Wednesday, if I stand up and say, I'm going to go hang out and, go watch movies at 12, I feel like, no one must say anything, because for me, it's about the entire thing, right? As long as I integrate it and it makes sense to me and it works out in a way that makes sense to me and I deliver, leave me alone. Like, honestly, like, leave me alone. That's for me. So I really believe in work-life integration. I don't feel stressed if I have to do something while I'm on leave, because I can actually decide, well, I don't want to do this. I just work it out in a way that makes me happy. And as long as I'm happy, I'm okay with it.
Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for the real conversations. Thank you for sharing so much and giving these insightful nuggets to all our people logged on and in the auditorium. I will now hand over to my friend Ntombi from Accenture for closing comments. Ntombi Mangwane is the Associate Director of Accenture Interactive and the Women's Forum Lead for Accenture in Africa.
Jessica, thank you very much. I find myself extremely emotional, which is something people are not used to. I resonate so much with everything Kenzi has said. I need to ask everybody in the audience to stand and give Kenzi a round of applause. And I would ask that people online give a hug, give a high five, give a hands up. It's been absolutely phenomenal. Kenzi, we love you and your special moon boot. But we just want to say thank you for absolutely blessing us, moving us. And yes, I am left emotional. Thank you, everybody can sit down. If you're not authentic, then who are you? Kenzi's story moved me to such a point when it reminded me of when I was with an organization where I did not belong, the culture didn't fit, and I tried to change myself to be what they wanted. The results was that when I did my psychometrics test at that point in time, they said I was manipulative. You know why? Because every time I answered a question in the psychometric, it said, how would you deal with the situation? I said, well, when I tried to deal with it this way in this organization, they said it's not right. So maybe this is the answer. And when you're not your authentic self, the world sees a manipulative person. You have no choice but to be who you are, the great person that you are, full of love for yourself, full of self-awareness, and knowing the behaviors Kenzi spoke about, knowing the areas you need to grow in, the roles you need to learn about to grow as an authentic leader. And ladies and gentlemen, I don't need to say much. Kenzi has said it all. All I'm doing is challenging you to embrace being your authentic self. Forget about being a transactional leader. Be a transformational leader. Understand that emotional intelligence and empathy are indeed the superpowers that Kenzi spoke about. And what I love the most, and which is why I'm so emotional, and this is the last time I say this, what I love the most is that when people look at senior leaders such as Kenzi, the CEO, your boss, everybody thinks those people must be so special. They're bathing in milk and honey, and they gave a butler that serves them with strawberries and champagne every day. And what has Kenzi shown us today? She's just Kenzi. She has good days, she has bad days. She wins as a leader, she falls as a leader, and she has to find some time to pick herself up and climb again and ride again. So Kenzi's not necessarily bathing in milk, honey, with a butler from Malawi serving champagne and strawberries. She is just being herself. Thank you, Kenzi, for being vulnerable, for sharing yourself with us today, for reminding us how important it is to connect so that you don't lose your passion and your confidence. Thanks to everyone who's joined us online. It's been phenomenal. Thank you to everybody who's in the auditorium. A very, very special thank you to our sponsors, Nedbank for hosting us, Accenture, one of the founding partners, together with Business Engage, our partners that we cannot do without, AECI, Astron Energy, EOH, Anglo Gold Ashanti, Life Healthcare, Refinitiv. We're growing a movement. Voices of Change is about learning from women, from leaders, so that those who are looking up to us know that they too can get to the, in quotes, milk and honey that Kenzi bathes in. I'd like to invite everybody in the auditorium for a light lunch in the foyer. And thank you truly to Nedbank. Thank you, Kenzi. Thank you to your team who hosted us, very intimate. Thank you to the technical guys. We love everyone who joined us online. We thank you, and remember, our next Voices of Change coffee session takes place in June. Join us, be part of the movement, grow, and also please remember to lift as you rise. Thank you very much.